Hello world. Today we're going to build our first macro. Macros are tools in Excel to help you automate processes. Essentially, you use a scripting language called VBA to assist you in background processes, activities. So what you're doing is you are writing a block of VBA and you are using Excel to execute that block of VBA. So without trying to confuse you too much on the concept, I will show you some examples. So the first thing we're going to do is enable our developers tab. So right now we're just in the regular Excel. We don't have a developers option. So go to File up here, and you're going to go to Options. We're going to want to go to Customize the ribbon. And as you can see here, developer is not checked. We're going to check that and hit OK. Now we have a new tab. This is beautiful. So we'll go to this tab. We notice there's a layout of options. Before we do anything, we're going to save this book as a macro-enabled workbook. This is different than just a regular Excel workbook. This allows macros to run and exist. So we're going to save it as a macro-enabled workbook. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our Visual Basic. So another way to get into that is hit Alt F11. And now we have a little menu, navigation menu here, and we have a kind of a big console type blank empty space here. So for Hello World, we're going to create a new module. So essentially what we do is we hit right click and we hit insert and we do a module. That means that this macro can be used throughout the whole workbook. You can call this module whenever. So we'll say sub hello world. And then, so essentially this is the kind of standard formatting of a macro. You say sub space with the sub's name, and then you open and close parentheses. And sub will automatically pop up because Excel knows that. If not, just make sure to close your sub. Now all we're going to do is have a message box say hello world. We don't need all the spaces in here. We can actually condense this down. We'll save it. So we have saved this. We will X out. And now we're back in Excel land. So everything's the same. We can use Excel regularly, but we have written a little instruction for Excel. Now how can we make that instruction execute? There's a few ways. An easy way is you insert a shape, and we will call this right here. We will call this button. We will center that text, make it maybe a little bit bigger, black. There we go. Now what we can do is we can right click on the shape and hit assign macro. Now as you can see, there's multiple, there's one macro in this macro list. The action is oval click, and the macro that will pop up will be hello world. So as you click this, we will get a message box that says hello world. What we did was wrote VBA to tell Excel to open a message box saying hello world when a certain action happened, aka this oval click. Now, what can macros do? Without writing it from the ground up, in front of you guys right now, we'll show you another case of a macro. So we'll go into our Visual Basic. We'll go into, now instead of creating a module, we're going into our sheet. Ruh-roh. We don't want end sub. And I'm sorry, this was just to save time, but it's clearly not saving time. I actually have this macro on one of my blogs from the past. So this is a fun macro. I pulled this a prank on my boss once, and I set this private sub worksheet selection by change macro, selection change. And essentially what that does is this is a macro that will change a cell color once it's clicked on. So we'll get rid of this. We don't need this anymore. We'll delete it. And as you can see, a cell already turned pink. It's only going to happen in this sheet because as you saw, we'll go back to developer. The VBA is only in sheet 2. Now every time you click a cell, it will change a different color. So from popping up a message box to say hello world to making a cool little macro, you can do a lot. It's pretty addicting, to be honest with you. You might be able to make a little flash game or something out of this. Okay, and lastly, so this video is not covering, I'm not going to give you thousands of useful macros. I'm going to give you the tools to create your own. So I already kind of gave you the setup for developer, how to get into your Visual Basic, and how to create a new macro or module. You start with sub, end with end sub. It's pretty straightforward. But what if you want to mess around in Excel and see what those actions would create as code or as script? That's very simple and easy to do. So Excel introduces this very user-friendly feature called record macro. And what I'm doing is I'm going to say, hey Excel, everything I do right now, turn into a macro. So I will start with record macro. We will call this test. And we don't need to give it a description. Now as you can see, it's recording. So it's going to say, we'll select this cell. We'll add these two. And then we'll drop down. And then we will write this course is awesome. And then adjust the cells. Now we'll stop recording. Now let's go into our Visual Basic. As you can see, we now have a module 2. And this is everything we've done. We selected D2. We set a formula to add the 2 cells. This is different than the row column. This is different than what your typical, the A1 nomenclature. This is a row column. And it's references. So it's saying, row will say the same, but go over 2 columns and add 1 column over. And sorry, that didn't sound very clear at all. But as you can see, it's go over 2 columns right here and add it to this column to the negative 1, to the left of 1. So now we have a macro. We will call it test. What if we wanted to do all these calculations, but let's change some numbers. 5, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, so now we're going to insert a shape, and we could just run macros. We could actually just hit developer, macros, and run test. But I just want to show you a nice easy way again, like I showed you in the beginning. We will assign a macro to this, test. And now let's see what happens. Beautiful. It did the math, and now it popped up our famous tagline, this course is awesome. What if I did it again? Nice. Okay. So no errors. Debugging is never fun, and I'm sure you're going to encounter courses on that with us later down the road. So now let's make sure this is completely dynamic. So we'll get rid of this. We'll say 9999, and we'll say 0. So this should be 0. Very quick and very cool. There you see the power of macros. You automate things you would do in Excel yourself. It saves time, it saves effort, and it saves a lot of energy. Thank you guys very much, and I'm excited. You created your first macro. Take care.